The Buckeye State Sheriff's Association is providing this podcast as a public service for informational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the host or guest of this podcast are their own and may not reflect those of the BSSA, employees of the BSSA, or any of its officials. Any reference to a specific product, entity, opinion, issue, or other such item does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation thereof by the BSSA. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association.
My passion for this job is to protect the Constitution for the people of Jackson County. Not everybody's going to say thank you. Not everybody's going to be appreciative of you doing your job. But for the most part, people will say thank you for doing what you do. And that in itself is what gets me up, gets me going every day.
Welcome to the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association podcast, where we'll introduce sheriffs and deputies across Ohio. During this conversation, you'll get to know the men and women serving you and hear all about the good work being done in the Buckeye State every day. Now let's join your host, Paulding County Sheriff Jason Landers, and today's special guest.
Welcome to the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association podcast. We're here today with Sheriff Tedd Frazier from Jackson County, Ohio. I'm Jason Landers, the sheriff in Paulding County, the host of today's podcast. We're on the phone today from about 4 hours away from Paulding, Ohio, with Sheriff Tedd Frazier, as we said, Jackson County. How are things down in the hills, Ted?
Good, Sheriff, good. It's 86 degrees here. The sun is out. It's very nice breezy day. Everything's looking nice here in Jackson County.
Man, that's good. I tell you, I was on a trip as I'm trying to tour around the state of Ohio this year, and I haven't made it to Jackson County yet. I'll find my way down there, but I was down as close as I've been in Noble County. I suppose down that way is probably as close as I've been to Jackson, but when we look at a map, I mean, I was still quite a ways away from you when I was over east in Noble. Now we look south. Sheriff, you're clear down just about a county away from the Ohio River. Talk about where you're located in Ohio.
I'm in the southeast corner. I'm about 45 minutes away from Kentucky and 45 minutes away from West Virginia. There's two counties that keep me from touching the Ohio River.
Man, you're down there. So just looking at a map, and another interesting thing is as I go around the state and just kind of look at the map, for example, I'm on the Indiana border, so I'm bordered with 3 Ohio counties when we talk about the folks that we work with, mostly in mutual aid settings. I have Defiance County to the north, Putnam's to the east, Van Wert's underneath me. When I take a look at the map of the state of Ohio and I look at Jackson County, I'll let you tell the listeners, for those folks that aren't familiar with the lay of the land, but talk about how many counties border Jackson, and that'll give kind of people an idea of what it looks like down your way.
To the south of me is Lawrence County, which is on the Ohio River. Then you got Scioto County, that's to the south west of me, and that's on the Ohio River. And then Gallia County is kind of in that tip in the corner, and that's straight to the southeast of me. And then you have Vinton County is to the north of me. Ross County, which is Chillicothe, is to the northwest of me. And Meigs County is kind of in the middle there. It's got a sliver piece between me and Athens and Vinton, and it's kind of to the northeast of me, and it's also on the Ohio River.
Then you got Pike County on the west side of you. I mean, that's looks like about 6 counties. I could understand. I mean, it's when you look at the lay of the land, I mean, typically you see maybe 4 counties, unless you're on a border. You might have 3, but that's pretty interesting. Well, Ted, let me tell you here, you know, the thought of this podcast and the onset of things was connecting sheriffs and deputies with the communities that they serve, and you're going to be episode number 16, so that's pretty good. We've been doing this for a year, and we've been able to produce some good quality interviews. To date, we've only interviewed sheriffs, and that's okay. We'll look at getting some deputies on in the future, but you know, there's 87 other sheriffs beside me in the state, and we're trying to get some of them on, as many as we can, and we'll eventually put some deputies in there. And you know, if you're the elected sheriff of your community, such as yourself, you are already connected with your county, but there's a lot of things about you that maybe some folks don't know. So let's start off with just telling the folks listening, Ted, who is Tedd Frazier? Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Well, I grew up in Kirksville, Missouri. That's northeast. That's 800 and some miles away from Jackson. I grew up there, born and raised, grew up on a farm. My mother was a RN. My father, he was a farmer. We farmed grain, cattle, hogs, uh, sheep, and horses. Grew up of a family of four of us. A lot of that I went to all my school there, my elementary school through high school in Kirksville. Then I went to college in Moberly, Missouri. Started there, and then went to Truman University, and then finished here in Ohio as a dragon at Tiffin, Ohio. I graduated, and when I was in high school, I was like, what am I going to do with my life? And my dad told me to be a farmer, I had to have a full-time job to pay for my farming habit. So I met a trooper back then and in school, and I liked how he talked and he acted, and none of my family was ever in law enforcement. So I thought, I think I could become a trooper. And so I got to looking into it. And back then, that was in the late 80s. Back then, troopers could be wherever they wanted to place you in the state. I thought, that's not for me. I want to stay close to the farming community. And so I talked to the sheriff at the time, and he said, why don't you start out as a dispatcher jailer? And I said, well, hey, I can do that. So I took and before I graduated high school, I started as part-time, 18 years old, working as a jailer dispatcher, and worked all the way through that. Ended up getting on the road, did some narcotic investigations, and went to the academy in St. Clair, Missouri. That's outside St. Louis. And then, lo and behold, I met a woman in college and ended up really liking her and got married to her and ended up moving to the state of Ohio.
Go Buckeyes.
Yeah, the Buckeye country. And a lot of people say that, they say, well, you're a Buckeye fan now and this and that. And I was like, well, I don't really watch sports. I'm not a big sports fan. And, that was a lot of the things that brought me here to the great state of Ohio was my wife. And then, I worked in the state of Ohio and, worked out of Clark County and went to the academy there at Clark State. Graduated the academy in 91, 92, and worked around Clark County and Franklin County. Ended up in 98 going down into Pickaway County, and then went up from Pickaway County. We started having kids, and I met a guy from Jackson County, Ohio, and he said, back then we worked a lot of meth classes and did a lot of traffic stops on manufacturing of clandestine meth labs. And he's like, how do you know so much about that? And I said, well, funny fact about it is we had a lot of them in the state of Missouri, and then the laws got changed and they added clandestine meth labs and that to the ORC, the High Revised Code. And from that point on, I taught over at Apollo for a little bit on clandestine labs. And it was picked up, our class that we made in the state of Missouri, actually picked up throughout the nation. And a lot of our meth labs, our teaching of meth labs is still taught today on red P and red phosphorus methamphetamines.
Yes, sir.
Throughout the nation, and that's kind of how I flowed into this job.
What year, Ted, you think that you made it over to Jackson County? You talked about 1998 over in Pickaway County, and then eventually you transitioned over to Jackson County. About what time was that, do you think?
I came to Jackson County in 2001. I've been here for 24 years. Worked under the prior sheriff that was here that hired me. I like my community, and have a farm here and raise cattle and that. And I really like being here. It reminded me of being back in my home state of Missouri. And we started having kids and come back into 2000. I'm going to say 2010, 11. The sheriff was going to run again, and I told him I was going to run, and so I ran against. He thought, "Hey, your chief deputy's going to run, and the chief deputy's going to run, and this guy's going to run." And he's like, I said, "Well, we'll give it a shot." And lo and behold, I beat two guys out from this county, and Ben Sheriff took office in 2012.
That's excellent. Sheriff, we'll talk a little bit about your tenure as sheriff and some of those things, but I want to circle back a little bit and talk a little bit about Jackson County. Tell the listeners about the community that you serve. And, for those of us that aren't real familiar with Jackson County and lay of the land, talk about the different, whether it's cities or villages, and what does Jackson County look like? Any industry? What brings people down there?
We have, in Wellston, Ohio is a city. It has General Mills, beautiful area. Over in Jackson City, we have Belicios, which is they make pizza rolls and things like that. Oak Hill, it's coming alive again. It's right on the border of Lawrence County, basically down in the top part of our county. We have Henderson's at Western Arena. They put on dirt bike shows or dirt bike competitions, a lot of horse competitions, of barrels, rodeos, different things, reiners, cattle cutters, in this area. This is a beautiful county. It's got some hills in part of it, and I call them hills. You all would call them mountains.
That's for sure.
If you're walking up it, you got to take a couple of breaks. It's a mountain. We have a lot of grain farming to the west of our county. A lot of grain farmers, a lot of cattle farmers, a lot of hog farmers. The Geiger brothers and the Bryn Mawr, they are fabricators. They do fabrication throughout the United States. We got two lakes they're not really big lakes that you can really put a boat on and turn on an inboard motor. You kind of have to use a trolling motor. We have a lot of things. I mean, Hocking Hills is to the kind of the north of us, which Benton County sits between Hocking Hills and us, but still we are in the Appalachian Trail. It starts, I think, out of Athens and runs through Jackson and goes all the way down into West Virginia, Kentucky, crosses over, runs all the way down through. We had the first stoplight, the first cash register in Jackson County for the state. Governor Rose was from Jackson County. Pig iron was a big thing back in the day. It was made here in Jackson County. We still have furnaces, but they're not operational anymore, but they're still furnaces. It's just a wonderful, wonderful place. I mean, I imagine most sure say that about their community, but not growing up here and not being from here. It's pretty darn close to the state of Missouri.
Yeah, well, I know you've been up in the northwest side of Ohio, so you know how flat it can be up here. And, we don't have a whole lot of things for tourist attractions. But just a couple of days ago, my wife and I were down in Hocking County and spent about 3 hours of our day Saturday walking I don't know what it was, 5.5, 6 miles in Hocking Hills, which is just, like you said, a little north of you. But, man, does the country really just turn beautiful down there. And what I'm most curious about is just the history of that area of Ohio and just how it was created and all of those things down in that way. It's just, it is really interesting how the landscape changes. I think I looked up, Ted, I think we're about 4 hours away from each other travel time. And man, it just sure changes probably 3.5 hours into my drive heading towards you when you get into, again, what we would refer to as the edge of the mountains for sure. And for your native folks, just probably some hills.
Right. And well, it's like you go back in history, Tecumseh, the Buffalo Trail, Daniel Boone, where Daniel Boone jumped off the cliff away from the Indians, that is really pretty close to to my farm here in Jackson County. The Buffalo Trail, the intersection for the Buffalo Trail intersected on my farm. One of the largest in this county of arrowhead collection dating back in BC area is by the guy that actually his father grew up on the farm, and he's a neighbor of mine, and he's collected all kinds of arrowheads and tools. Salt Creek, where it was called neutral ground back then. There's a lot of the salt that was taken out of Salt Creek was boiled right there on my farm. And his dad was 90-some years old when he passed away. But before he passed away, he showed me the rock bowls where they actually cooked the salt out. And talk about history. This place is loaded with history.
Man, it really sounds like it. That's really cool, and I'm excited to get down your way even farther south than I was this week and get to visit you and your neighbors down through there and see the rest of what Ohio has to offer down in that southeast area, just as I continue my tour. But you talked a couple times about your farm, so let's go into hobbies and interests and things. Now, you talked a little bit about sports and where you're at with that, and you talked a couple times about your farm and cattle. And I know just from talking with you, I mean, cattle is an important part of your background and what you do every day. Tell us, if you will, whatever you're comfortable with about those hobbies and interests and what keeps you busy outside of being the sheriff.
I enjoy farming. That's where I get relaxation, and I calm down with farming and cattle. My kids show cattle all over the nation. They've been as far as Denver, Colorado, Pennsylvania, just everywhere. Fort Worth, Texas, showing cattle nationally, and it's basically we run 100 head here in the state of Ohio. And it's basically it keeps everything going. I do my own farming, do my own hay production. Matter of fact, last weekend we were putting on fertilizer on hay ground. A lot of that is just so they can learn. And the thing about it is the kids in Jackson and Southeast Ohio, a lot of them farm through FFA and 4-H. And they build that work ethic, and they can survive on. If they can't find a job, they can always have something to fall back on. But nowadays, they can find a job anywhere, and that was a lot of the purpose before that is if you can't do anything else, at least you can farm and make a living.
Yeah, that's for sure. Let's turn away from the farming and the cattle and all those things. We'll focus back towards your law enforcement side. So you started to talk about running for sheriff. You won a contested race, and if my math is correct here, Sheriff, that was back in 2012. Take office in 2013, if that's correct. Pick up on that, and then how have things gone for you since your first election?
Since my first election, we've built a very nice fleet of cars. We have built a dispatch center. It's one of the most fanciest ones in the state of Ohio right now, they tell me. We went with a Motorola Flex. We have Marsh radios. We have in-car computers now. Basically, the deputies can do anything and everything they need from a car. They can talk to the dispatcher if need be, but most of it's right in the car. Everything's to the computers. We just took over dispatching for the city of Wellston, helping them out. We do Wellston Police Department, Oak Hill Police Department, all the fire and all the EMS dispatching through our agency. We have 52 employees, 13 road deputies, dispatch. We run 24/7, 365. A lot of our cases that we do, we went from everything from murders to, we've got one of the largest human trafficking cases in the state of Ohio. We did it a few years ago. The guy ended up going for life federally. We have started the trash pickup with the inmates. They go out and do the service. They go on the county roads to pick up trash. A lot of this was other sheriff's idea, but I tell you, one of the biggest helps that I found becoming sheriff and figuring this out was Bob and Mona Cornwell. They helped us out a bunch, or helped me out a bunch in understanding another sheriff. I mean, Sheriff Jones out of Butler County, Sheriff Scott Kent out of Crawford County, Sheriff Lavorchek out of Otto County. Sheriff Leif. I mean, there's so many sheriffs that I can name them all, that you pick up ideas from them and you go with it and see if it's going to work in your community. And a lot of mine has worked out for me in this community to build it up and, bring back law enforcement. And if they have a problem, they call me. I mean, they're probably not in every sheriff's office, but in my community, if they feel comfortable talking to me, they'll talk to me, and we'll give them the help that they need or push them in the right direction.
Yeah, let's go back to what you were talking about a little bit. You mentioned Executive Director Bob Cornwell and Assistant Director Mona Cornwell. This episode that we're recording now and this podcast we're building is funded by the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association. There's a board of directors that narrows down to an executive board, and we take care of the budget. But, Ted, you and I both know the backbone of the association rests with Bob Cornwell and Mona Cornwell and their longevity over 40-plus years for both of them being involved in this association. So just talk about BSSA a little bit, and if you want to make any comments about them or that, and any positions that you currently hold or have held, talk just a bit about the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association.
Oh, no doubt. Mona and Bob, they are the backbone. I mean, you call Bob, and if he doesn't know, he can give you an answer within 15 minutes. I mean, he'd find it out. Myself and you went to new sheriff school together back started in 2012. That was one of the best times of my life. I mean, it wasn't the top one, but it was probably one of the top 5. And I bought into the association because before I came as sheriff, I don't think my sheriff is very involved in the BSSA. And I sat on a couple of committees. Now this year I went to be one of the district directors. To really get involved. I sat on the ward, the internal investigation side of it too. A lot of them in this region of the state. I mean, that's the thing. And you learn so much from Bob and Mona. It's crazy. I mean, you can't say enough good things about them. It's just like everything else. And it's like Bob says, when you get all the sheriffs together, it's like herding cats. Everybody's got a different theory and a thing, but when it comes to knowing what the laws are, Bob's it. Bob's the man on that.
Yeah, that's for sure. And so much of it has to do with just, his personal strengths of memorization and just knowing people and names and his resources. And that's what Bob is. He's a facilitator, right? So we call him and we have a situation. He, again, to your point, if he doesn't know the answer off the top of his head, he knows who to call, and he tells you that information. And the impressive part for me is it's always the right information. And as I have these podcasts or just talk with people around the state, this year specifically for me, I've been honored to be invited to things outside the norm that I typically haven't been invited to, and that's what I hear time and time again when someone introduces me of who I am and who I represent with the association. Is so much of it goes back to, Bob Cornwell and just the success and the respect that he has. And here's the other thing too. Not everybody likes him because he tells you exactly how it is and he tells you the right answer. And a lot of folks aren't comfortable with that, are they?
Well, but that's the thing. I mean, not everybody likes what we have to say. Here's the facts. Here's what you're going to do, or this is what you have to do. We might not like the answer either. But the thing about it is the facts are the facts. And that's what we deal with in our jobs. We deal with facts. And that's what the way Bob deals with it is, Sheriff, you're not going to like this, but this is the way it is. It's the truth. And a lot of people, they either like it or they don't like it, but it's the fact.
Sheriff, talk to us for a minute. Make a statement here, if you will, on your passion for law enforcement. It's always one of my favorite questions to ask, but I mean, we all have that certain drive in us. We all have different personalities, interests, and things. But every sheriff that I've talked to so far, and the ones I'll continue to talk to, and deputies I talk to, there's always that little thing that just stands out to you as your drive, the reason for you to continue to serve the citizens of Jackson County. Every day you put on this uniform. What's your passion, Sheriff?
My passion for this job is to protect the Constitution for the people of Jackson County, to make sure they're treated fairly and equally. And when you can help people in this job, that's more than anybody could ask for, because not everybody's going to say thank you. Not everybody's going to be appreciative of you doing your job. But for the most part, people will say thank you for doing what you do. because I don't think I could do it. And that in itself is what gets me up, gets me going every day. I don't care to work 12-hour days. I don't care to work 24 hours a day, as long as I can help people get through the situation that they're in.
We're on the podcast today with Sheriff Tedd Frazier from Jackson County. We're going to take an ad break. We're going to come back, continue on with the sheriff, talk a little bit more about some things that involve him in law enforcement in his career, talk a little bit about his office and anything going on special within there before we wrap up the episode. Back after this break.
This podcast is sponsored by the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association. The BSSA is in Columbus, Ohio, and was established in 1931. The Buckeye State Sheriff's Association was formed to perpetuate an efficient organization of Ohio sheriffs and their deputies. BSSA provides an exchange of information pertaining to the duties, methods, and official practice of its members. The association also exerts such influence as may be necessary to bring about and preserve legislation in harmony with the needs of enforcement officials and the safety of the public. The BSSA supports the efforts of this podcast to promote Ohio sheriffs and deputies and their mission to serve and protect the citizens of Ohio.
Welcome back to the BSSA podcast. We're going to continue on with Sheriff Tedd Frazier down in Jackson County. We're over the phone right now. And Sheriff, I want to turn to you and ask you a couple things here. You've talked about being in this profession now over 30 years. So there's been a lot of changes in 30 years in law enforcement. Anything stand out to you that's notable that you've seen change over your tenure?
When I started in law enforcement in 89, it was everybody good old boy system. Then it switched to everybody and your mother. Now it's kind of flattened out to be where everybody, we're trying to help you through if you need charges, if you don't need charges, and being more servant to the people. But a lot of the biggest changes has been the computers. We've got, in my tenure here, we've got body cameras. That takes so much doubt out of anybody's question of what happened or because of the body cameras. A lot of it is just technology. I mean, a lot of information that we get and need is through these laptops, these computers. It's wild how far law enforcement went from, we're going off the UHF to VHF. Now we're on Morse radios where it's like talking on a cell phone. Before you used to have to stand on one foot and hold a hand in the air and tilt your head just right to be able to talk on the portable. Now it doesn't matter where you're at, you're talking on the portable. I'm pretty sure back in the day, I can remember we used to have a military issued phone radio and you had to have two hands to talk on it, with a big whip on it. Now, actually, it's down to the size of a cell phone radio. It's crazy how technology, the worst thing, though, of technology has been these cell phones. Now they get a hold of you anywhere and anytime, which is great in the law enforcement world. But, boy, when you're out, you're trying to take a day off and do something with your family, that phone never quits ringing.
Well, you're right. And that, not only the technology piece in law enforcement, but from a training perspective, I don't want to bring you into my category, but I'm a pretty simple guy. I mean, back, 30 years ago, we were hiring simple cops that wanted to go out and serve the public and help people and could understand the Ohio Revised Code and the policies you worked within and go out and enforce those types of things and be good people. Now we're looking for people in our profession that have this educated mindset that can understand this technology and just take a smartphone just because it's sitting in front of me. So I'm looking at this smartphone and all the things that it's capable of doing, all the criminal activity that can take place with just that one device. And we have to train people to understand it, to dig into it, to understand the software, to download it, and then decipher what it says and apply it to the law, put it into a report. I mean, just that piece when we talk about smartphones and what we have to look for in potential candidates when we're hiring, that has changed, hasn't it? Tremendously.
I mean, my smartphone, I still have to give it to my kids to figure out how to do some things on it because it's smarter than I am on a lot of that stuff.
Sheriff, let's talk a little bit about mutual aid here. So we talked off air just a little bit, kind of set the stage during the ad break. Mutual aid is such an important part of what we do. And if we want to be successful, and I will wrap us into this category because you have more population-wise. Our offices are very similar in size. And when we have certain events that take place here, and I've had, unfortunately, a handful of them where I need to reach outside of the confines of Paulding County to support my staff and myself with different kind of investigations, whatever they are. Mutual aid is a long-standing thing for Ohio sheriffs to be able to work together. You've had, some events happen down your way. One of them, heard across the nation, really, and I've listened to a whole bunch of podcasts on this. But if you would comment about mutual aid, if you will, and anything specifically about the Pike County murder massacre back, a handful of years ago, which was just the mutual aid that it took for the sheriff's office to succeed at that time, came from all over the state.
Exactly. What happened there, I was in Atlanta, Georgia with my wife on a Thursday, and we were flying back. We flew in Thursday night, late Thursday night. Friday morning, my phone rang at 7 o'clock in the morning, and Pike County was needing help. They had a couple of murders over there. At that time, they knew of one trailer, maybe two trailers that was involved in that. And so I said, okay. I asked, I said, I'll send everybody I got over there. So I sent my task force team over to help out whatever they needed. About noon, 11:30, 10 o'clock, noon, somewhere in there, I got a phone call and said, hey, this is starting to be bigger than what we thought, we got more scenes than that. I got a call from Bob Corlow, executive director. He said, can you go over and help? And I said, what sheriffs do you have over there? And he told me there was 3 or 4 sheriffs over there. And I said, I tell you what I'll do. I said, I'm getting everything caught up at my office. I said, by 4:30, I'll head that way. And he was good with that. So 4:30, I headed over there. And then I ended up bringing in my deputies to relieve deputies that had been sitting on that scene from that. And that was at like 6 o'clock that night. I ended up switching out deputies with my deputies. I pulled from Meigs County Sheriff's Office. I got a hold of the Sheriff Lavorchak from Ottawa County. He called me and he said, do you guys need anything? And I said, can you send me some people? He sent me some people. I believe Athens County sent me some people. We were trying to just get people relieved, and that ended up turning into 3 weeks of me running night shift. I would take the sheriff, of course, had to swear me in, and I controlled the crime scenes at night. Sheriff Lavorchak from Ottawa County controlled the scenes during the day, and we'd switch off and we'd pass information back and forth. We'd get new deputies from different parts of the state. Shelby County, I know, was there. Lorain County, Franklin County. Boys, there's 88 counties. I couldn't tell you all of them. I don't want to leave anybody out. I mean, there was a bunch of deputies that sheriffs were sending, and we had a schedule set up through Sheriff Sims out of Warren County, and it was just, we were just rotating people in and out, trying to get what they needed and help any way we could. And that was Pike County. That was a lot of the Pike County thing. Ended up after 3 weeks, cleared out of there. Then it was all going to be basically footwork, and their investigators and BCI was involved. The Attorney General at the time was Mike Dwine. He was down there quite frequently. Angie Gametha from the AG's office was there. We was working with them, trying to help them out as much as possible. But you talk about coming together, that was a big come together. And then it wasn't, but maybe a year later, Lawrence County had a murder down off of outside Ironton. And I ended up, we were at an AG's breakfast up in Columbus, and I ended up leaving there and ended up being in Lawrence County for 48 hours, helping on that, running their scene control for the 2 days and locating the murder suspect. And then that was that one. And then Ross County, I've been involved with mutual aid with them, trying to help a guy and a girl that they were on a hunt for. I think it was a murder charge. I can't remember. And they ended up getting killed down in Kentucky. And then Ottawa County, they've had some big fundraiser, or I shouldn't say fundraiser. They should be more putting in the bay, they needing deputies and that. And since Ottawa County has always sent people to help in other parts of the state, I sent people up there to Ottawa County putting in bay for their bash on the bay. And then Lorain County, when they had the tornadoes, I took some people up to Lorain County to help with the tornadoes. So we've been involved with a lot of trying to help other sheriff's offices out, and that's what it's all about: is respect, the help. We all dress in the same uniforms. We all drive the same marked cars. Our policies are pretty close to alike, so we had no problems going in and helping out.
Man, you wrapped it all up there real good, Ted, and it is, and I'm glad you put in, Put in Bay and their bash in the bay, I think they call it there, when Sheriff Lavorchik needs help, because initially talked about these really bad, gruesome scenes that are big and broad and long, and you just need a lot of help to preserve evidence or look for the bad guy. But we also do that for those different types of entertainment draws. I was down in Darke County a week ago, and Sheriff Whitaker down there is talking about Eldora Speedway, right? So they got this speedway in their county, and brings in, he said, 30,000 people for the weekend to this basically rural part of Darke County, and he pulls, I think he said, from 8 sheriff's offices that send help his way to man those events, and we could just continue to go on and on with different examples for mutual aid. But I just wanted to talk about that a little bit, because people that listen to this podcast, whether you're new listeners or you've been listening to it over a long time, may or may not have heard talk about what that mutual aid is, and I think it's really important for what we do. Let's turn to the Jackson County Sheriff's Office a little bit. How's staffing for you? You talked about how many employees you had there. I jotted down, I think 52 maybe, as I was making some notes here along the way. But how's staffing look? Everything good? And are there any programs you wish to talk about that helps you with staffing and different types of recruiting techniques?
Well, we're pretty full right now with all of our staffing. We were pretty good after COVID. We came back. We're basically a training ground for other sheriff's offices and other corrections departments, because we don't have the budget of a lot of these have. You're talking $3-4 different on the hour. We usually get them out of the county, or out of the academy. Out of the academy. They come, we get them trained up. They're here for a year or two, and then they're off to something else. And we're generally good with that. It's just like everywhere else. A lot of people don't like to do this job anymore. They don't like to be belittled, because you're not dealing with the most popular person that you're arresting on the street. They're bullies, and people, the newer generation, it's hard to find them that want to come to work at a sheriff's office or in law enforcement, period, because they don't know how to take it, because they're fresh out of high school, or they're 18 to 21 years old coming into this job, and they've never really lived life or never saw the bad side of people.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think, we, when I talk about this question, and of course I've talked to, sheriffs, I think the largest by population was probably Akron, with Sheriff Fothery over in Summit County over there, Sheriff Jones down in Butler County, Sheriff Osceolishin in Wood County, some of the larger county sheriffs by population I've talked to, and everybody has their own little niche in recruiting, and whether it's videos or going to career days and some of these things. And what I think is important about that for me personally, in creating a couple what we call recruitment videos and going to the career days, and if you take advantage of social media and are able to do that, I think that's one thing that our friends in the gray shirts at the State Highway Patrol is doing really well, using their social media. For the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association, Sheriff Mark Vosselich in Wood County has agreed to chair that committee for us to really try to enhance a lot of what we do as Ohio sheriffs, and what I say is change the narrative that, and sometimes, or a lot of times, the national media will put their own little spin on maybe something really bad that happens. But Ted, I think you would agree there's so much good that happens in law enforcement. We need to be better at putting that information out where people can see it and see the good work that's being done every day by law enforcement officers. We'll say specifically for sheriffs and deputies, because that's the podcast that we're on here with the BSSA. But we need to be better, I think, at enhancing our own image. I think Sheriff Ossolich and his group's going to do good with that, where we can let the people know across this great state, really across the country and the world, because this thing's accessible anywhere you have the internet, and tell them what we're doing and show off those things that will be better for our younger generation who only knows about social media. They only know what YouTube is, getting away from classrooms and libraries, and it's really coming to your handheld smart device, or maybe if you're sitting in front of a computer or a tablet, and get you the information that shows all the good in it. And as I wrap this thing back to your statement is, so the young people do come up and they do want to be in this profession, just like you and I did. They do want to be the community service type people to work within the counties, maybe where they're from, or maybe they come from outside and come into this community and want to serve the good people. And so we really hope that we change the tide on that, because I think your statement's accurate that we've went through a period of time where it's been really difficult to get people into our profession. And I think we've got to take the bull by the horns, and we have to change the narrative that some other outlets have been able to control over the past few years, and let people know what a good, honorable job that this could be.
I absolutely agree 110% with what you just said, because that's it. And I am not one of the ones that, I can talk to people, but we have to push it out there to where they see it on a daily basis, and that's on those smartphones.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Sheriff, what do you got going on within your agency you care to talk about? Any, I jot down here some cadet programs, volunteer groups. I've heard all kinds of things talking with sheriffs around the state. Is there anything unique, specific to Jackson County you'd like to talk about?
We just go to schools. We go to anything with kids, like parades. We just do a couple of recreational parades. We don't really bring them into the sheriff's office, but we just go talk to them at the schools, at the fairs. It's an everyday thing. We never quit going talking to the kids. It's, a lot of these, the school had Jackson Division, or Jackson District School. We have the SOR officers in there, and, they had a kind of a job fair thing, I guess it's called. And I went in for a little while, and the kids came up and said, you got any questions? I said, no, Deputy such and such told us about it, or Deputy such and such told us about it, and we really want to look at this, we really want to do this. But I said, well, that's great. So when you going to come up and do it? And they said, as soon as we graduate high school. And I said, well, come on up, and we'll sit down, we'll go over stuff, and get you through the academy, and see how you did. And, that's the thing. A lot of kids, they're more interested in Jackson County. They come see us, and we'll talk to them on the street. And heck, I hired a kid that was in a traffic stop. I said, this is not the way for you. You're speeding, you're going to end up dead. You better. And, he came back at the age of 21. He put himself through the academy. He asked me to help him find the academy. We went through the academy. And you know what? He's a pretty darn good kid now. He's a deputy, and he'll fare far in life with it. It'd be a good one.
That's a great success story. Well, Sheriff, is there anything that we left out, or any other topics you'd like to discuss?
I just want to say thank you for putting on the broadcast. I know it's a lot on your plate to do, and give a shout out to Mona and Bob and all the other 88 sheriffs.
All right. Well, Sheriff Frazier, I'd like to thank you for being a part of today's episode. We would like to thank the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association for their sponsorship. For Sheriff Tedd Frazier, I'm Jason Landers. I'll be right back here next month featuring another Ohio sheriff or deputy on the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association podcast.
Hi, my name is Bob Cornwell, and I'm the Executive Director of the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association, located in Columbus, Ohio. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. It was brought to you by the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association. With this podcast, we are striving to introduce you to sheriffs and deputies from around the state of Ohio and recognize their great work they do every day for the citizens of Ohio. For more information about our organization, Google Buckeye State Sheriff. Thank you.